Okay, so let's talk about um, yeah, again the absolute principle, right? Um, let's go beyond the duality. Okay, let me read this one. Buddhi and Nirvana are still very far away and cannot be attained without ions or practice and experience. Even if you success in memorizing the 12 dimensions of the Maya canyons taught by all the Buddhas and the profound and perfect doctrines, countless as a Gansi sense, they will only enrich sophistry. Although you speak of course, condition, and assistance, as you are very clear about them, and in spite of people calling you the first of those with a wide knowledge of the Dharma, which is beneficial influence for aeons past. You have been unable to avoid the pit into which Matagis fell. Why have you waited to be rescued from it by my suragama mantra, which calls the girl to extinguish the fire plus completely, to realize the state of anagami, and to enter the dance of forest of the and develop devotion. As the river of love dry up, you were delivered from bondage. Wow. So this one is the Buddha message to Ananda, right? So Buddhi and Nirvana is pure thought. Without practicing experience, whether we memorize everything of the Buddha teaching, we still far away from Buddhi and Nirvana. Uh, and so first, Vivekananda say that the pure nature come from the course and condition, but actually that's not. And that's why Buddha said that he has not been able to avoid the pit of Matangi fell. So we know the spell that actually her mother, right? And he was rescued by the Sura mantra. Yeah, and uh, and for her later on, um, she went to see Buddha and become Buddhist nun, and she attended Arch before him too. Uh, so here, uh, what do you think? Somehow, this type of teachings that may make our people wonder about the function of the mantra. So, do we need to have the spiritual support from the Buddha and Bodhisattva through their mantra while we practicing? What do you think?
Well, I don't think the Buddha would have taught them if there wasn't some benefit to them. And I think given how easy it is to go astray, that having all the support that we can have is needed. So, the Buddha taught it for a reason, and if we're overly confident in our own power, I think then it's just easier for us to go astray. But even just the fact of reciting them, it's in a sense can be an expression of humbleness that we're asking for help, and even just that humbleness
Mm,
is helpful. um, so even if there's no power beyond that, it could still be helpful, but certainly you know uh, greater there's a greater force that we can connect into with the compassion of like the bodhisattvas and of the Buddha. So yes, I think yes, helpful, important.
Yeah, for me, when I was layman, and even the first few years when I was Buddhist monk, I didn't realize how powerful the Buddha's mantra were. So if I just went to the Zen center to practice meditation, I couldn't realize that. But eventually I recognized. So if we can practice meditation alone, not easy for us to overcome all kind of you can say that demonic obstruction, both inner demonic obstruction and outer demonic obstruction that we have because of our past karma. It's not easy to overcome them, and that's why every day I make combination of sitting meditation and recite the mantra, especially the compassion mantra. Of course, this is and the regular practice of reciting the suragama mantra every morning for Buddhist monk and nun. You recite sometime before, right? Suragama mantra.
I have before. There's a point where I hoped I would make it a regular thing, and I
Mm-hmm.
just never did. I like have to get up earlier to do it. And it's interesting because so we just brought this. I brought this stray dog home, and there's no shelters that I've been able to get to take it. No one else. So like, I'm gonna have to wake up early to walk this dog, and so it's like I could have woken up early to do the mantra, but I just didn't choose to.
Mm-hmm.
And but this is a good example of, well, if I really wanted to, I could have, because now I'm doing something I'd rather be doing the mantra than walking the dog. So
Yeah, yeah, it's so powerful. Yeah, I think actually now most of the time before I have important meeting or even big celebration or anything important, I would say recognition mantra, mm, and I could feel it so many times. Not only that test now, but I could recognize that. So before I get test out, but somehow whenever I test out, I fail. I recognize that's so powerful. Whenever I decide the mantra before, and especially when I could overcome any kind of problems. Sometimes, most of the time, it went smoothly. If I didn't, it's all kind of problems. I don't know. Probably that's the spiritual part of my life.
hmm.
Yeah, I, yeah. I don't know whether you recognize us or not. Um,
Well, I generally don't recite the mantras in the morning. I usually at nighttime I recite them
mm,
with if my daughter goes to bed. I just do one of the Earth Store Bodhisattva and then one round of the Great Compassion mantra. And
mm,
then sometimes, like if I'm on a plane flight, I may do a lot more recitations.
mm,
Uh, or there were times where when Smile was younger, I might recite it 3 times for her to fall asleep.
mm,
Um, but usually now I'm just doing those each once a day. And some days I'll miss it. But I definitely could, definitely could do more.
mm. If we could not, for me, I could not see, but I could feel that power, that blessing power from Buddha and Bodhisattva. Yeah, I let me give you one example. For our Buddha birthday celebration in Houston, somehow we were so busy that that morning I didn't spend time to recite. Usually I recite at least 21 times of recognition mantra. But that morning somehow I forgot and I was tired. So after we done the Buddha birthday celebration, there's some kind of problems there. It didn't go smoothly. But when I got that lesson so many times before, too, not only this time. So I got lesson, and when they came back here to run the with a birthday celebration here, I decided 21 times, and everything went smoothly. So it's of course I'm the one that recognizes no other one else, no one else. and it's many times, not one times. So that's why the power of the mantra is inconceivable. I if I meditate alone, there's no way for me to handle those type of you can say invisible obstruction.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
mhm. uh, for you, you have families, right? You have one and the others are different from me. I have the whole communities. Whichever that happened to me is they have ripple effect to the whole community, especially when they conduct the big celebration. That's why it's so important. Mm.
mhm.
Yeah, it's so it's so powerful that I'm alone could not handle those type of activities, spiritual activities. Say that. Anyway, so what I want to share with you is it's incredible. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm.
nice.
Yeah, when the word layman couldn't recognize us, I just like to sit meditation, that they didn't care much on this now about all the things. Mm, yeah. Mm. But I have
It is nice after doing the mantras too. It's easier. Like I feel more energy and an even greater ease in turning inward to meditate.
mhm. Yeah, and also yeah, again, I'm blessed that I went to study under my master. Otherwise, I would not recognize this type of invisible power from Buddha and Bodhisattva. Mm. When I was a layman, I really want to do just meditation. And I don't know whether you know this one Zen master. He's still alive. He's almost 100 years old now in Vietnam.
Mm,
And the most of Vietnamese Buddhists recognize him. At that time in the 90s, so United States have not opened to do the trading with Vietnam yet because after those all kind of problems. So I could not go back. But I really actually his teaching influenced me a lot because when it was college, you know, on the way walking from my apartment to the classroom, I listened to his lecture in Vietnamese. Whenever
mm.
times I listen to his lecture, his the teaching is so influential on my spiritual path, especially in Zen tradition. So that's why after finishing the course, I really want to go back to Vietnam, but I could not. So somehow my karma ended up at my master's temple, and I
Mm.
have to have that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why it was part of my practice now, combination of reciting mantra and do meditation. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please, you can read next.
Therefore, Ananda, you're memorizing and remembering the Tathagata's profound and wonderful teaching for successive eons cannot compare with one day's practice of the transcendental path, which has enabled you to avoid suffering from both love and hate. Matangi was a prostitute, but she gave up lust and desire with the aid of the mantra, thereby becoming a bhikshuni, called self-nature. In this assembly, both she and Yasodhara, the mother of my elder son, Rahula, awoke to the sufferings caused by desire and love in their previous lives, and in a flash of thought practiced the transcendental way. One was freed from bonds, and the other received my prediction of her future enlightenment. Why do you still deceive yourself by clinging to what you see and hear?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the Buddha is highlighting that the that knowledge has its limits, and that eons of uh, memorization, of practicing, like reciting memorized teachings of the Buddha, can't compare to one day of practicing the transcendental path. Now, so this in this distinction, I think by practicing the transcendental path, like in Zen, how they talk about seeing this the true nature, and in this sutra, This seems to be a very foundational sutra for Zen, because
mm,
a lot of the concepts talked about in Zen are really beautifully described here. Um, and that practice of the transcendental path is uh, way beyond what can come from simply memorizing and reciting knowledge, even though there are benefits to that too. And that even this Buddha's mantra was able to help Matangi transform and abandon lust and desire, and so to become a nun, and that this Matangi and the Buddha's wife in a past life had already awoken to the truth of suffering caused by desire and love in a previous life, and that they had practiced the transcendental way. And I think it was probably Matangi was the one freed from bonds, and Yasodhara, I would guess, received the prediction of future enlightenment.
mm,
So the Buddha asks, why are you still clinging to these illusions of the things that you see and hear? Why are you attaching to them?
mm. Yeah, sometimes it's like uh, we turn on the switch, right, of our light, right? It turn on completely, but sometimes we turn on and turn off, right? So depend. For people,
Yes, yeah.
the good route, whenever they turn on, that's on all the times. But some people they turn on for a while and turn off, on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Depend on our root, and also depend on our vows and our practice too. Mm, yeah. Mm. Okay, let's see here. That's this one. So the would basically his goal, right? I know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's rare. He doesn't scold too much, but he does here and there, and
Mhm.
that is one. Yeah.
Okay, so enlightenment objects contemplated in meditative studies. After hearing the Buddha teaching, Ananda and assembly now rid of doubt and illusion, awake to reality and felt a lightness of body and mind which they had never experienced before. Ananda again wept, prostrate himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, kneeled down, bowed his palms together, and said, "O peerless, compassionate, and immaculate king of treasures, you have opened my mind so well by using all kinds of experience and encouragement to lead me out of darkness in the ocean of suffering. Warned once, after hearing your Dharma voice, until I have realized that the bright minds of absolute Buddhi of the Tathagata store pervades the 10 directions to bring all the lands therein to the pure, majestic kingdom of absolute enlightenment. The Buddha again blames my useless knowledge acquired by listening, which cannot compare with the true practice and training. I am like a traveler, it is suddenly given by the King of Heaven, splendid mansion, which now that he owns it, he should know how to enter. May the Tathatas not forsake his great compassion, and may he teach all the deluded in this assembly how to give up the small vehicle and how to develop their minds in order to attain to ultimate nirvana, so that those who still need study and learning may know how to overcome their clearness to causal phenomena in order to achieve perfect control and enter Buddha's wisdom. So he recognizes not a mistake, but the ignorance, right? That he get asked Buddha provide teaching for him to get out of the small vehicle, so that they can attain that ultimate nirvana. Anyway, so like we discussed before, yeah, it's many people whenever they encounter the uh, principle of selflessness. I mean, the no self, no ego in Buddhism. They still have the doubt. If there's no ego, sorry, no self, so what is the true self then? So who we are? Who are we then? So I think this part, I mean, Mahayana Sutra, especially this one, focus on that, right? The pure nature, pure mind. That's different from illusory mind or false thought that we play around. Otherwise, we don't know what we have. And yeah, when I read the meaning of nirvana for arhat, Buddha just meant uh, like when we burn the wood, it's gone, everything's gone. When they light a candle, when the candle is lights out gone, it's gone. So it's mean nothingness. That's why it's make a lot of confusion for people. So I think without this kind of teaching, uh, people could not recognize who they are, could not recognize the pure nature of them. You recognized before, right? The difference between the Theravada's principle of egolessness and this and Mahayana principle of pure nature, right?
Yeah, my first introduction to Buddhism was through the three pillars of Zen, and that is very much a Mahayana viewpoint. And I really did not understand the concept of nirvana until the last couple of years in doing these calls with you and Tikyao Fap. So I feel like, yeah, I clearly understand the distinction now and the role of why the Buddha taught nirvana. And I know why I was confused now and didn't understand nirvana before, because in the Zen tradition that I learned in initially, they didn't really talk about nirvana. They talked about enlightenment and about the true nature. So I kind of had the sense of it being a blissful state that one achieved after having a certain realization and letting go of desire. But now it makes much more sense seeing the big picture.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, please.
After saying this, he prostrated himself and reverently awaited the holy teaching. The Buddha took pity on the Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas in the assembly, whose minds set on enlightenment were still not at ease, and also on future living beings in the Dharma ending age who will want to develop their Bodhi minds and to tread the path of the Supreme Vehicle. He said to Ananda and the assembly, "As you are determined to develop the Bodhi mind and practice the Tathagata's Samadhi tirelessly, you should first ascertain the two decisive factors in the development of your mind. What are they?" Should I keep reading or?
Please.
Okay. The subjective mind in meditation. Ananda, as you decide to give up the state of a Sravaka to practice the Bodhisattva vehicle, in order to possess the Buddha's all wisdom, you should see clearly if the cause ground, used as a point of departure, and its fruit ground, i.e., realization, are compatible or not. Ananda, if you use your worldly mind as a causal point of departure, you will fail in your search for the vehicle, which is beyond birth and death. Therefore, you should inquire into the creations of the mind, which in this material world are subject to change and destruction. Ananda, which one of them does not decay? Yet you have never heard that space can perish. Why? Because it is not a created thing. Okay, so, all right. Right. He said to Ananda in the assembly, okay, and so Ananda was moved by the Buddha's scolding and was very humble and asked the Buddha very sincerely for his benefit and those in the assembly to help to teach them, to clarify, to help to dispel their delusion. And so the Buddha, for the sake of the monks and the nuns and the people in the future who would want to attain the Buddha way, explained the teaching to Ananda, and explained that there are two decisive factors in the development of the mind. So, and what are they? The first one, the subjective mind in meditation. So the Buddha poses the question is, can you use this analytical mind that understands causes and conditions to get to the realization, to enlightenment? And the Buddha says that no, you'll fail if you try to do that, because the Buddha vehicle is beyond these distinctions. It's beyond distinctions of birth and death. It's beyond like this distinction of causation, of cause and effect, because the true nature, one could say something like it comes before the small mind that causes distinctions. It's what makes that small mind of distinctions possible. But it's whole and complete. So it can't truly be separated up into parts. So the Buddha said, since you'd fail by using that causal point of departure, you should inquire into the creations of mind, which in this material world are subjects to change and destruction. So all creations of mind, I mean, all concepts, all labels for anything, all distinctions separating things from other things in order to create some sort of structure of understanding, that they're subject to change and destruction. One way we can see that is as people age, their thinking abilities degrade. So their ability to use these concepts falls apart. And the things the concepts describe, they're also impermanent and changing. None of them are lasting. So it's not, we can't really say that that's, that yeah, this is a table. Well, in 1,000 years, this is not going to be distinguishable as a table. So is it really truly in its essence a table? And no, that's a creation of the mind. So inquiring about what does not decay, the Buddha recommends, which one of the creations of the mind does not decay, which one of them? And he sounds like he's referring to creations of the mind. And then the Buddha says, you've never heard that space can perish because it's not a created thing. Yeah, space is definitely not a thing. We can't quantify it. We can't weigh it. We can't find a beginning or an end to it. We can have a concept about it, about space, but the phenomena that concept is pointing at, there's nothing there to perish. Space can be filled with air, and yeah, the molecules that make up air, well, those over time, my understanding is that they can eventually degrade, or they can change back into energy and be undifferentiated. But I don't know. I mean, space itself, yeah, I don't think, yeah, there's no experience or idea I have of it being able to perish either.
Yeah, when you were talking, so I remember the story of a lay person, a Chinese one in China. So after he has some kind of realization, so because before he was a wealthy man, so he threw everything, his gold or whichever treasure he had, he threw everything to the river to show that he didn't have any kind of attachment to them. At first, yeah, when I was young, I felt that, oh wow, he's great. He didn't attach to anything. But now I realize that it wastes, it waste of money, it waste of wealth. Instead of throwing away, we can build some hospital, build something for common people, depend upon their understanding of Buddhism, depend upon their practicing of Buddhism. Some of them, they may not have reached like a step, might we need to help them out. That's what they call Bodhisattva path. Yeah. Have you recognized us before, William? You understand?
Which part of it? Yeah, I understand. Recognize which part of it.
In that,
The
uh,
careless abandonment of
if,
material goods.
yeah, if we will understand the principle of detachment, right? Because everything come and go, because it's the principle of impermanent. So instead of throw them away, throw the wealth away, why don't we use them to help the poor people, to help the needy one,
Yes, yeah, I agree.
right? So
Yeah, because you have some people suffering so much, and it could make such a difference. And
yeah,
if you're letting go of it anyways, yeah, use it for something good.
yeah. And I read one story about a red monk, a Thai red monk. So he's so famous in his village and his city. So people ask him if he could help to build a school. He say no. Yeah, of course, his level of attainment or realization is beyond human thinking, right? But
Mhm.
if he follow Bodhisattva path, yeah, even he's up there, but because of the need of common people, of human, they still need this type of education. Right? It's much better for us to provide them the tools, and eventually we can guide them to the path of enlightenment.
It makes me think about the dynamic I had after my first year of high school when I spent the summer meditating and had this stabilization of my mind and just a contentment with whatever I was doing. But I cut everything out. So I wasn't maintaining friendships or spending time with family. I had a routine I did every day of meditation, of walking meditation, of like it was very regimented, and I it was fantastic. It was like every day was better than the best vacation I'd ever had. And
Mm,
then when I had to go back to school, it all fell apart. Like I depended upon a certain sort of setup. And I was also just really thinking about my own experience and
mm,
about my own kind of um, comfort in a different way, because I wasn't just like laying on the couch
mm,
relaxing all the time. I was meditating, but there was a very deep comfort in that, in the mind. And so I get that sort of dynamic. It seemed like maybe, I don't know what his motivation was. Was he just that it's all an illusion, so I don't need to worry? Or was it that it would threaten his mind state if he became involved in complexity?
mm,
And it may not be a very stable mind state in the face of all of these different decisions and choices and unpredictable circumstances that arise when you work with a lot of people. I think like with Ananda's situation in the suragama, if we don't come across the circumstance where there is the opportunity to make the wrong choice, like we don't really know the state of our mind well.
mhm,
Because if we just have no opportunities to make a wrong choice, well, maybe heck, as soon as one comes along, we have no protection against it, and we're gonna fall right into it.
mhm,
So that the Bodhisattva way definitely like exposes us to those sorts of opportunities and choices, because it's like whenever we go to help someone, we're usually exposing ourselves to some sort of difficulty.
mhm,
Like this dog, man. This dog pulls like crazy, and he's like, my forearms are just So I had to like go get a different leash and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to be taking care of this dog, but like, I don't want him to be killed. And so it's like messing up my daily schedule. I have to like shift stuff around and wake up earlier and all that.
Mm.
Um, so I get it a little bit, I think.
Mm. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I because without education, especially for the lay Buddhists, if they don't have the foundation in Buddhism, it's easy for them to get lost. For the general public, uh, so we need to use the means through education to guide them in, to bring them in. That's why we do after school program here. We do a summer camp here. It's not easy to run this type of school programs. It took a lot of effort and have to spend a lot of times and effort uh, for the next generation because many of my students they came from different states, even California, Texas, and so forth, especially the college age and even post-college students. They like to come here because I create this kind of environment for them to come and hang around with each other. But that's for them. But for me, I create this type of condition for them to learn Buddhism. They may not recognize us now. They could come for fun, for a connection, for friendship. But for me, we need to create this type of condition for them to come and learn Buddhism. Otherwise, they get lost in their life. Mm. Especially in this country, there's all kind of information nowadays. Mm. So somehow, even we up here, we have some kind of realization, some kind of understanding, some kind of experience, but we need um, to work. To step down so that we can help other people going uh, to the same path. Mm. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So it take a lot of times, but um, it's worthy. Some of my former students now they are camp leaders. They follow me so many years, more than a decades now. So most of the time I get focused on the praying and the teaching. The rest for the game and so forth, I just let them to play with the other younger one. Before I took care of everything. I didn't have much games for them when it was in Indiana, in Court, Indiana, but now they play all cap games so that they can have fun. But my point is that we need to bring them in, especially the young people, otherwise they get lost here. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought your daughter, and if you can somehow, yeah, eventually, if she get connection here, that great for her, right? Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
Rest, right?
Yeah. And just doing the camp will make it easier when she comes up on other days, other events, because then the more of the kids know her, she knows more of them. It's going to be more natural.
Yeah.
And then she'll probably be more likely to want to spend more time at the camp in the future.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Before I forget.
Yeah.
So they change the schedule. They cancel the schedule for me to go up there on July 3rd. So now they change to the August 23rd, that Wednesday. Yeah.
August 23rd for.
For the appointment to see a doctor, remember?
Oh, okay. So you won't be coming in on the 3rd?
Yeah. They cancel because
Okay.
of schedule them.
So then
Yeah.
if I look at August 23rd, yeah, if there's a time that you want to come by the office and I can show you the sort of work that I do, I can see if it helps with the flow through the legs. I got between 10 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. It's all open. I don't have anything scheduled that day yet.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, somehow I almost forgot that. So anyway,
Okay.
okay. So let me read this one, right? The objective phenomena in meditation. In your body, that which is solid is the element of earth. That which is liquid is element of water. That which is warm is elements of fire, and that which moves is elements of winds. These four restraining elements divide the pure, perfect, absolute, enlightened Buddhi into seeing, hearing, knowing, discerning, and therefore stupid conditions from the beginning to the end. That's one here. Oh, okay. Where is stupidity? Another, take for instance, clear water. We is so by nature, and thus earth, ashes, and sand, which are absorbed by nature. If someone throws earth and dust into clear water, the former will lose their obstructive qualities, and later is cleanness. The result is dirty water, which is called turbid. If I turbid condition are like that dirty water. So now he just mentioned about our physical body, right, was composed by the four elements, and they divide our pure nature, our absolute nature, into seeing, hearing through our five sense, and that's what they define typical condition. So he gave the example of the water, and somehow when we threw the dust into the water, it's become dirty, and he gave that kind of analogy as a tupid, the five tupid condition that like dirty waters. Mm. Uh, so mm, somehow I used to give the example for the beginners to do meditation, that like dirty water, when we just keep that cup of water for a while on the table, on the ground, the the dust, the particle will be settled down naturally. We don't need to do anything. So the meditation. And so that's why that principle is works so well for me whenever I just sit there and just try to hold the breath, and it come by itself. We don't need to use any pause. When it was layman, I didn't know that. So this is so important. It's simple in front of us, but we don't recognize us. Many people don't recognize us. They think that they have to use the mind to control the breath, control the mind, to pure the mind. But actually, it just come naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
It's yeah, and I find it's even hard for people to hear that. Like it's not a very complex concept, but I remember when was learning it, looking back, it was hard for me to see that clearly. Like I wanted there to be something that I had to do, because then I'd be responsible for it and I could like demonstrate my abilities. But now when I share it with people who come to see me in my office, like I can tell sometimes folks get it, but sometimes like as soon as I'm done talking, they've been thinking about what they were going to say and they didn't really hear what I said. And like it didn't land. So it's yeah, sometimes the simple things are the hardest.
Ah, I don't know. You know the story of the Zen master who chopped up a cat in half?
Yes, we talked about the monks were arguing about the cat. Yeah.
And so no one could respond to the master question. That's why the master chopped up the cat. It's because not compassionate toward the cat because he's so rude or because he's so cruel? What do you think?
Well, he was using it as a teaching opportunity for the monks, and they were creating all sort of conflict over the cat. Weren't they arguing about like who got to keep the cat on which side? And it was creating a problem. And so, I mean, certainly, you know, there's still some sort of karma for that action, but the master is being compassionate towards the monks.
What about
And
the
maybe to the cat too, because if the cat's involved in this sort of conflict in the assembly of monks, that can't be good for the cat, even though the cat's not intentional about it. But it's definitely one that it's you know, if there's nowadays, if there's any other way to solve the problem, you probably find a different way to solve the problem. But that's one that I could see a
mm,
lot of people could be upset about.
yeah, for the modern people, right? They may see that Zen master is so cruel, right? He chopped
Mhm.
the cat in half, and later on, his main disciple came back, and somehow he's heard that story, so he put one uh, shoe on his head, and the master say, "Well, if you were here, you uh, would have rescued the cat already. Where is it gone?" You know, understand the concept, right? You know
Yeah, we talked about that of the like the unity of opposites, like because the shoe represents the lowest and the top of the head is the highest. So by like there's another Zen saying like the sublime and the mundane meet in the air like two arrows, or like the sublime nestles directly into the mundane. So whatever whatever the phenomena is, it's not truly distinct from the self nature.
Mhm,
So if one sees the self nature and allows everything to be in its natural place, then there isn't obstruction. They wouldn't be fighting over the cat if they'd seen the self nature, you know.
point.
They you know, but the cat wouldn't be a problem if they'd seen the self nature, because sometimes the cat's over here, sometimes it's over there, it doesn't matter. Like, but they'd become so attached to it, and it was like a distraction for them, and it was real evidence that they weren't understanding the teaching.
Mhm. That's why his close disciple put the shoe on his head. It represents that uh, the head is the highest place of the body, and the shoe is the lowest one on the body. So the lowest one and the highest one in union, there's just go beyond duality there. So that's why the man say, well, if you were here, you would rescue the cat already, but it's late. But anyway, so that's why I love the Zen story. Most of the time they don't explain outright, but they show by example, they show by action. And it's so meaningful. Yeah, yeah, please, yeah. Mm.
Ananda, when you see space in the 10 directions, your perception and the void are inseparable. And since the void is bodiless and your perception unenlightened, both unite into one falseness, which is the first layer called turbid kalpa. Your body is made of 4 elements which limit your mind and divide it into seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. The union of water, fire, wind, and earth with your feeling and knowing begets another falseness, which is the second layer called turbid views. So yeah, this is understandable. Yeah, when we see empty space, if we're say on the top of a mountain or something and we can see a really big space, the void is bodiless. There's nothing to it. There's no limit to it. Um, and your perception unenlightened. So they unite into a falseness called the turbid kalpa. Um, So I think I kind of have a general sense of understanding of that because the kalpa is this, this period of decline and then increase in human lifespan
Mhm.
where blessings are high and then they're low and then they're high. And that is born out of unenlightened perception of space.
Mm.
Perhaps the unenlightened aspect is this idea of separation.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I totally understand that. I'm pretty sure I don't totally understand that actually. How that unenlightened perception of the void uh, caused the falseness of the turbid kalpa. And then, yeah, it's like the Buddha's explaining the mechanics of how the delusion arises, which Ananda was asking about earlier. Like basically, what's the source of delusion? And so here, the four elements, they limit the true mind and divide it into these kind of individual senses. And then the union of fire, water, wind, and earth with your feeling and knowing begets another falseness, the turbidity of views. So yeah, because those elements are like what make up the feeling that we have.
Mm.
And I mean, interact with our knowing, like the thinking and knowing kind of depends upon the activity of the brain. I mean, to a certain extent, we can have awareness of like the essential nature without the brain's activity, but the particular ability to work with language does appear to be dependent upon the brain because we can be alive and we can lose language.
Mm.
Um, and then that begets this falseness of the turbidity of views. So, maybe the turbidity of views is around um, like preferences, because when we have feeling in there
Mm.
and knowing, well, then you can have feelings we don't like and we can have feelings we do like. But I
Mm.
would love if you could clarify these for me because I don't think I fully understand them.
Yeah, so the first one talking about the timing, right? The two bit carpals, the timing, right? We have the in reason and the reason carpals. That what they call two bit carpals just mean the fluctuation of the timings. So the first one, the Buddha say, because of our perception together with the voice, and our perceptions are unenlightened that we could not understand. That's why we attach to the times. These are times. That's why we have some kind of um, uh, recognition about time differences. Like the time in California is different from our time here. The time in Vietnam is different from time in Louisville, Indiana, and so forth. So basically, because of that type of perception, we set up the time in a certain um, periods. This is our time, but the time in changing because of that kind of underlying perception. But if we have that kind of recognition, awareness, so time is just the conventional way to put so that people can know and follow. That's what I think. That's what about the two-bit comparisons, that the fluctuation of the time is because of our perception, our unaligned perception.
Yeah,
I mean,
gotcha. And like because like a lot of our time's based around like the motion of the earth around the sun, and you need space for that to occur.
mhm.
And you need to have this kind of separation also. And okay.
Yeah, that's one. I think I show one video clips when we study Lotus Sutra about the time zoning. time zone of the past, present, and future. Remember that?
Yes.
Years ago.
Yeah, where it was showing like the slice of time and how you could in one moment there's kind of, I think it was using the speed of light or something. There was some way that it was kind of, you could see how the illusion of time.
Yeah, that's what they call the fluctuation of the time. In the second one, the fluctuation, the views because of this body, right? So what I say, limit our mind divine to seeing through our five sense. So like you say, if someone have problem with their nerve system, so may they see things in different way from us. Or for the children who have what do you call uh, oh, I have one student. He has what do you call that one? I forgot the term. He couldn't speak fluently, but he listened to the music so uh, so correctly. He listened to the music that he could write the note and write the lyric, um, uh, and he could recognize them much faster and quicker than the normal musician. Or as what do you call some children they have the problem. I forgot the names that they could have the problem with up speaking and listening. What do you call that one? Not
There's autism.
autism. Yeah, that's why autism. So probably something wrong with his brain, right? But somehow he developed in different ways. He has different talent than us. What his name? He can pass away. The the most famous scientist, I forgot his name. The one that's used to sit on the wheelchair. Recognize?
Oh, that was Hawkins,
Yeah.
Stephen Hawkins.
He's so smart. He's a genius. His views of life is different from normal people, and sometimes he speaks something mm, that beyond the times, that beyond people, human thinking. Even in our conventional views, he has that type of autism or that type of physical disadvantage. So again, that's why would I say that our body connect with our feeling um, without knowing it, right? This type of topic views, the fluctuation of our view based on this physical body, based upon the makeup of our brain, makeup of our body, makeup of our mentality. That's why everyone of us see things differently. Yeah. Anyway, so uh, someone someone if they just fall down and somehow they may damage their nerve system or some of them because of some thing happened to their brain, they see it in a different way, right? So um, that uh, the um, the fattiness of the brain and the feeling and the thinking um, according to our conventional way of explanation. But here, that's why Buddha say that the five sense that through our ears we hear, through our eyes we see, and so forth, that make up this kind of fullness. That's why we view things in different way. There's a turbid view here. Mm. That we could not recognize a pure mind. Uh, so everyone has different view until we recognize that um, if we recognize our pure mind, let's go beyond this stupid view. Okay, so since time is up, let's just stop here today. Then you have anything to discuss?
Note, thank you.
Okay, all right.